Hey everyone, Catherine here. I heard a great sermon this morning from my pastor based on Galatians 5:1, which says, "It is for freedom that Christ has set us free. Stand firm then, and do not let yourselves be burdened again to the yoke of slavery." That phrase, "do not let yourselves be burdened again," is a really interesting phrase. And as my pastor was talking about it, saying, why would you allow yourselves to be burdened again? The psychology part of my brain was just going crazy. And it made me think of neuropsychology. What we've learned from neuropsychology is that we have neural pathways in our brains. When we learn something new, our brains make a connection and it becomes a pathway. The more we use that pathway, the more we reinforce it, the stronger it gets. The only way to break that pathway and make it die away is to develop a new pathway and use that instead. Think of it like the Grand Canyon. The Grand Canyon was not formed because rock is really powerful and just cut through it. The Grand Canyon was formed because the water was so persistent that over years and years and years and years and years, it wore through the rock. Our pathways are that same way. When elephants are trained in the circus, I have heard that when they're very small, they are chained to a chair. And those little elephants walk the same circumference over and over again because they do not have the freedom to walk anywhere else. When they grow up, that chain is removed, but the elephants don't know it, so they keep walking that same circumference over and over again, believing they are still enslaved. How often do we walk the same circumference over and over again, even though we are free? The Bible tells us in John 8:36, if the Son sets you free, you are free indeed. But Paul tells us where does Paul tell us? Romans 7:15, that for I do not understand my own actions, for I do not what I want, but I do the very thing that I hate. Why did Paul say that it was so hard for him, the apostle of Christ, to do what he wanted to do? Why was that so difficult? Well, because we have really strong neural pathways and we have to break them deliberately. This is not a passive activity. We have to take personal responsibility for grasping on to the freedom already granted to us through Christ. How do we grasp onto that? Well, the first way is by praying. We seek God, we petition Him, we ask Him to move in us, to change us on our behalf. It is not something we can do on our own. We need the power of God to work through us. Another way is by reading what the Bible says. God has given us a template for what our core beliefs should be. God has told us who we are. God has told us who He is, what our purpose is, how to walk that out, how to call for help. He has told us everything that we need to know. But it's not good enough to have a head knowledge of what God says. We need an experiential knowledge of God. And the only way to have an experiential knowledge of God is to take personal responsibility for what we do, what we spend time thinking about, what our actions are. We have to make a decision to walk out our Christian walk. Being a Christian has far less to do with what we believe or what we say we believe is true. Being a Christian means we walk out what God says. It is an action. So I just want to appeal to you today that if you're struggling in an area, hand it over to God and ask Him what is true about the situation. And when He grants you that wisdom, when He tells you what is true, keep walking in that. And when your brain tries to revert back to that old habit, say, no, that is not what I know to be true. What I know to be true is this. And it's going to take 1,000,000 more decisions to get you on the right path from the 1,000,000 decisions that got you where you are. But with deliberate action and taking personal responsibility, you can be there. Be blessed.